All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is a Monday. It's an Arlen Monday. Hey, Arlen, how you doing today?
Well, I'm not sure, Hal. I'm kind of very upset, actually. I'm and very worried about what's going on in the political world and what's happening in Washington, D.C. To me, it feels like a coup. I think it's a right-wing coup with Trump and Musk, and they're not slowing down. They're going all out, and I don't know if the opposition can stop them.
Yeah, it's tough times, no question about it. We're going to talk a lot of politics with Arlen. He is, of course, the thought leader, California's thought leader, if you will. But before we get there, Arlen, you and I have bonded not just over a shared commitment to progressive politics. Sometimes we disagree pretty vehemently, though, on the tactics and strategy that can get us to the right place. But I think we both have the same end goal in mind. But we've also bonded over football, the American game, not the European game of football, which is called soccer here. And I also like that game. But let's talk about the big game last night. Eagles fans celebrate the best night. It was a good night if you're an Eagle. Would that be the best night of your life if your team wins the Super Bowl, Arlen?
I would think so. I mean, that's the ultimate. That's what you're working for, and when it happens and you win, that's pretty damn good. Um,
I can see that for Jalen Hurts, right? The quarterback. I can see that for the head coach. I don't know that they've ever won a Super Bowl before. The Eagles, though, won a Super Bowl not that long ago. I mean, within the past 10 years, those fans have had their Super Bowl championships. I mean, really, the best of your entire. That seems. I don't know. That just seems a little bit hyperbolic to me.
well, I certainly know that they feel a whole lot better than the Kansas City Chiefs do.
Oh yeah. Well, these are the fans, though. Again, this isn't. We're not talking about Travis Kelce sitting there with his head in his hands. Could sort of see a tear in his corner of his eye. Which again, I don't have a lot of sympathy for somebody who makes many millions of dollars and has won numerous championships. So I can only take it so seriously. But if I'm a fan, I'm happy. I'm excited. It's fun. That's not. I don't know. I'm just. Those Eagles fans are pretty rabid. To be fair, though.
Yeah, no, I kind of misread the headlines. I'm sorry. I agree with you. I mean, that you can't say the Eagle fans are having the best night of their lives. I was thinking of the players and the coaches.
Yeah, the fans. That's where I was a little bit. I wouldn't say put off, but taken aback, shall we say? Now, you can read it though, right? You said you had misread,
Yes.
but you can see the screen, correct?
Yes.
So we'll get to my little take here. I think it's important to note that I posted this, Arlen, and I was very clear to circle and even blow up the time and date. Now, the game started Sunday, February 9 at 6:30 p.m. my time. You can see where this was posted 7 minutes before that.
You got it right, Hal. But then again, it wasn't that huge of an upset because I think Kansas City was only a 1.5 point favorite. But the way Philadelphia won the game, that was unexpected.
It was not a big upset, but it was still an upset. The Eagle, Kansas City was favored because of their quarterback. I think that was the only factor you would look at and say that made them a better team. But he's had so many great performances in the biggest moments that it would be tough to bet against Patrick Mahomes. In this case, however, he was unable to overcome Philadelphia. It wasn't really a very exciting game. Did you find it at all? Did you watch even?
Oh, sure. I watched the whole thing, but part of that's because we do Super Bowl squares and you try to win money, on the points after each quarter. So that made a little bit of difference. And just the fact that everybody else it's very popular around the world now, I understand. But there's, it's all over the world, when it first started, it was just the United States, but now it's Europe and so many places all over the world.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's not nearly as big as the World Cup. I don't even know if more people watch the Super Bowl than the World Series, even though in the United States football is far more popular. But baseball is big in Mexico. It's big in Japan, Korea. So I'm not quite sure which of those sports has a greater worldwide following. But you're right. The NBA also is far more popular worldwide than football, but than American football, that is.
I think
But yeah, you weren't really into. Were you? Well, did you pick? Did you have a pick? Did you have a team you want to win or that you thought would win?
No, I kind of hoped a little bit that the Kansas City would win. I don't know why, but and I didn't have that much stake in the who won the game. But wow, Philadelphia! You know what? I have an idea watching the game though. We're all looking for something to stop Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and I'm thinking maybe the Philadelphia defensive line. They could stop them. That's about it. That's
It was an impressive display of defensive fortitude without question by the Philadelphians. Arlen, this may or may not be knowledge to you and may or may not appeal to you, but my understanding is that the Eagles were the blue team and the Chiefs were the red team. And I don't mean in terms of the team colors, but in terms of whether Red America, MAGA America preferred one or the other. The Chiefs, led by Patrick Mahomes, I understand, is a Republican. And Travis Kelce texted out. He was pleased that the president was there. It was a great honor that he was in the stands. My son pointed out that that was apparently, at least he thought, disrespectful to Kelce's girlfriend, who obviously has taken a strong anti-Trump position. That said, the quarterback for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, didn't quite come out and say he's pro. He's not a MAGA guy, but he had a tweet that seemed to confirm that he's not a fan of President Trump. So you can read the tea leaves and be happy that apparently a more Democratic team from a more Democratic city prevailed.
Well, it's kind of interesting too. Taylor Swift, of course, endorsed Kamala Harris. Got a lot of people upset, but she's still super popular. But yet at the game, she got booed, as did President Trump. And by the way, President Trump put that clip of Taylor Swift being booed on his, screen or whatever, or that he, sent out to people. But I don't think he probably posted his booing.
So I did not know that he was booed. I knew that Swift was, although I didn't hear it or see it, but I was unaware. I thought the president actually got a relatively popular reception, which I would have expected only because I would assume that NFL fans tend to be more conservative and more Republican, especially those who are going to lay out probably 4 or 5 figures to get into that stadium.
Well, I didn't see it live, when he was booed or whatever, but I did see a clip, and it sounded like he was being booed. So that's what I'm going on.
We should talk politics. We will, but still, it is the day after the Super Bowl Monday. So any ads, the ads are supposed to be almost as big a deal as the game on the field. None of them so I didn't even watch them, frankly. I mean, they were kind of out of the corner of my eye, but as soon as the advertisements came on, I stopped focusing on the TV.
Hold on.
Arlen taking off. Arlen just sort of abruptly departing the scene. So I will
I'm here.
put myself on screen. Here he is coming back. Let's see if I can get Arlen back. There we go, Arlen. So you had something you wanted to show, or you just had to quickly answer the door, or something?
No, it was my phone. I forgot to turn off my phone. I don't.
Well, we didn't hear it. All right, let's get to politics. That's what this program's really about, Halitics. It's progressive talk for progressive people. I don't know. We used to call ourselves Progressive Talk, right? For your progressive prescription. I had all sorts of slogans and things we came up with back in the old Monterey days. Arlen, this was an article. We're going to start with one of your articles, not with mine. This was one you recommended you wanted to talk about. I thought it was very apropos. Tell us a little bit about state capture here.
Well, yeah, I'd never heard that particular phrase before, but this was written by Tyler McBrien, who's a managing editor, Lawfare, whatever that is. But he's saying who exactly is running the federal government? It's troubling enough to be able to answer emphatically with Democratic elected leaders. Even more troubling is the possibility that the actual answer is Mr. Musk, the world's richest man, and other unaccountable, unelected, unconfirmed allies cozy with the president. Yeah, and that's what they call state capture.
Yeah, so that the state itself, the operations of the government are captured by unelected individuals.
Yeah.
Now, I have been on balance far less, I would say, alarmed. I wouldn't say far. I've tended to be less alarmed by some of the reports about Trump's actions than some others have been. That said, many have really, really upset me. The Guantanamo Bay prison, I think, is is horrific. This is very, very upsetting. I am not going to minimize this. I'm not going to try to make excuses. I think it's true the media may be overstating or overreaching some of the ways that Musk may have access. But all that said, he's arrogated, or Trump has arrogated to him an extraordinary amount of power, unelected, unconfirmed, not a cabinet member. And this is somebody who has clearly a very, very whose conflict of interest with the American public is very, very great. He could use this information, obviously, the fear, and I think it's legit, to enrich himself at everyone else's expense, and also to take down, critical government functions.
Yeah, and I wondered too about. I think he sounds like a racist, and the stuff he's allowing to go on his X, or what used to be Twitter. It's pretty awful. By the way, here I'm going to show you something. The New York Times today, just to give you an idea, front page, and I'll read you some of the headlines.
All right.
Front court to resist Trump.
Wait, before you go, we're going low tech here. Arlen just holding that. We don't have anything, and I can't really read it, but whatever. Just read. Just tell us what's the headline, Arlen. I'm just saying it's.
What the front line to resist Trump coalesces in federal court. Attorneys generals lead multi-pronged push that will test checks and balances. That's one headline. Another one is stunned federal workers speak out on purge. Another one is angry callers tie up phones at the Capitol. So in other words, there's a lot of stuff going on and people are starting to get really upset. And
the fact that there's a lot of angry insiders doesn't particularly bother me. The insiders have had their way for far too long at the expense of the American public. But the reality is, again, that Trump has, I think, some legitimately, good points, but he's going about it in tremendous overreach. And if he wants to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, there's lots of good ways to do it. Having this guy Musk come in with a chainsaw and getting access to personal information seems totally wrong-headed and anti-democratic and unconstitutional to me.
And not only that, sure, there's a lot of wasted abuse, but you don't entirely clear out an entire organization like USAID and the education department. I mean, Trump is just going way overboard. He really doesn't have the constitutional right to do all these things. He's doing a lot of spending that Congress is supposed to do. And, I think he's trying to be a dictator. He's trying to be King Donald.
Well, I don't know. He's certainly going to the edge of or beyond what powers he has under the Constitution. And the courts have pushed back, though, to a significant degree, Arlen, so you can feel good about that. But the really important issue, the really important, I think, check has to be an opposing party, or I wish opposing parties, which we don't have. We have one opposing party. There's no one in Congress, I believe, who's neither a Democrat nor a Republican. Bernie says he's an independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats.
Well, there's another one.
So that's the question. Can the Democrats rally, I think, public support and some Republicans to oppose the excesses of the Trump administration?
Yeah, I can't imagine how Republicans, at least a few Republicans, must be a little bit worried with the way they see he's overstepping. And, they're wondering that, they could hurt them. If he falls, then they all fall. And the Republicans so far have been pretty much, they've given in to Trump on almost everything. And it's pretty sad. They've let the worst possible people, be nominated for the cabinet and things like, and it just never should have happened. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. might be confirmed. Kash Patel could be confirmed. And the Attorney General now, Pam Bondi, I think it is, she's awful. I mean, and this guy Voight that they nominated just the other day for the budget director, he's got a really bad record. So, but the Republicans are letting that happen.
Presidents have traditionally been afforded great latitude when it comes to appointments. So I don't think there's any reason, certainly by their own party, right? I mean, even by opposing parties. So Joe Biden famously rallied support for and helped shepherd Clarence Thomas onto the Supreme Court. So presidents do tend to get quite a bit of latitude. The Republicans changed all that under Obama, doing everything they could, certainly with respect to their judges. But there is a problem there. I think some of Trump's appointees aren't bad at all, but some are terrible as well. So, yeah, I mean, we're in a bad spot. I wish we had, I think where you and I may disagree is that I don't see the Democrats as offering us either a positive alternative vision for America or even real resistance in a way that's ultimately designed to bring our country into a better place.
Well, that's fine. If we could talk about the Democrats in a moment, but when you're saying, other presidents, had no problem nominating the people that they wanted, these people that Trump is nominating are extremists. I mean, these are people that don't like government, that want to cut everything out, that want to go after people, that want to, destroy the opposition. I mean, these people are, and then you got Bobby Kennedy, whose views are very strange when it comes to medical, although he's not fully confirmed yet. He has to go through the whole Senate. But these guys are real extremists, in my opinion.
All right. Well, don't forget, if you want more, you can join us on Halitics. And I had to actually delete a few posts lately. I hate to do that. People complain, say I'm being anti-democratic. If you're going to insult others, this is Halitics at Facebook is not about insulting or owning people. It's about trying to come to solutions. You can disagree vehemently with someone. You can tell us why you think they're wrong. People do that with Arlen. They explain, in painstaking detail why he's wrong, and he reacts by doubling down. But even still, it's polite generally, or relatively so. But if you're going to make, personal attacks, you're going to find your post deleted, and you can jump up and down and squawk about it. I really don't care.
I agree.
I think that access to the Treasury system is really upsetting, Arlen. I think what you're saying about appointees, I think you're looking at some of Obama and Biden's appointees, especially Biden's, but also Obama's with rose-colored glasses. These were not necessarily good people at all. I believe Tom Vilsack, who was Obama's agricultural secretary, was very tied into big ag and the entire fertilizer sector and all that. And we've seen in the healthcare sector too, folks who are tied to big pharma who Democrats appoint. So they may not be as overtly confrontational, disputatious, or rude, but their actions do not reflect a pro-America bent, shall we say?
Yeah, no, it's one thing to be on one side and have your own strong points of view, but like your Facebook page. But these guys are true extremists. They say very extreme things that no Democrat would ever say. And look at Elon Musk. He's never been elected, nominated. He's from another country, and he could do whatever. So far, he's been pretty much can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I don't mean to minimize the threat. I think my point is more that the Democrats are living in a glass house themselves. Their own actions are very, very problematic. And for them to be able to stop Trump means they're going to have to acknowledge their own failings, I believe, and present a better vision. And when you look, and I just cannot stress enough how terrible I believe this defense team was that Joe Biden put together. The three cabinet members all had deep ties to defense contractors. And all three were instrumental in supporting incredibly destructive foreign adventures, including genocide, including proxy war with Russia that has caused countless deaths, billions, maybe $1 trillion. So I can't look at what Trump's doing and say that's totally qualitatively different than when you put as your Secretary of State somebody who took money from Boeing right before he was nominated, when you have as your Secretary of Defense a man who was on the board of Raytheon, and your Director of National Intelligence was worked for Palantir, which is a spy, they make spying devices. So that is so bad, Arl. Now, again, this is not to excuse Trump. It's not a defense of Trump. It's to say, unless the Democrats can acknowledge their own terribly anti-democratic actions, I don't see any reason to think they can lead successfully a purge or regime change first from Trump.
Well, first of all, you got to also accept the fact that the Republicans do the same thing. Whoever they nominated has strong ties to the corporate world. I mean, they're no different than the Democrats. They're probably even worse. But, I think the Democrats, they're struggling. They don't know quite what to do yet, but they are, there's a lot of them that are trying to figure out, what's the best way to go about, starting to gain more popularity and start to get the confidence of the American people. And it's going to take some time, but I'm hoping they'll do it. I mean, there are some.
What would you? I have given advice. For example, I have actually given advice to Jamie Raskin. He's certainly not going to take it, and I would be shocked if he did. But I have personally spoken to him about this. What would be if a Democratic leader such as Adam Schiff came to you and said, Arlen, what should we be doing to build support for the Democratic Party and to draw away from MAGA? What would you tell him?
Well, I tell them that, first of all, that Democrats have to be very careful about taking money from corporations and doing whatever the corporations want. There's too close ties in both parties to the wealthy, to the billionaires, to the corporations, and somebody's got to stop that. But then again, you've got the system that we have for voting, in which there's no limit as to how much money you can spend, and you're able to not disclose who you are, and foreign money is probably getting in there. I think the Russians are doing a lot of things that are hurting us, and so there's a lot to be done. And I think the best solution would be public financing of campaigns. I don't know how we're going to get that, but I think that would be the solution, because it's money that's ruining politics.
It's a huge problem. Let me just put this up real quick. I didn't want to go in this direction. I want to get back to state capture, so I apologize for the digression, but I thought I'd bring it up just because it seems to me the state has been captured, regardless to a degree, and we can argue about the degrees, by corporate America. Either way, corporations, multinational corps. So my view, a little different than yours, is that Democrats need to enunciate a clear and consistent vision for a better America. And, my super thumbnail sketches is we're all have enough and none have too much. But I think, Trump has a vision. It's not a vision I particularly like. And it's not one he is consistent in seeking for the American people. But there is something to it. America for Americans. We keep the immigrants out. We bring good jobs here with the tariffs. We are isolationists to a degree, no more foreign wars. So he has kind of a bigger picture that he paints for the American public. That's what I think Democrats need to do.
Yeah, certainly Trump had messages that resonated with the voters. Whether he'll actually come through on these things, I can't say, because but I think it's really all about Donald Trump when you come right down to it. He just wants power, and he's willing to, ignore the Constitution and come after his enemies, which he's been doing already, against Biden and all sorts of people, taking away their security clearances and things like that. So I don't think Donald Trump is looking out for the American people. That's for sure.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, he's petulant, he's immature, he's narcissistic. I'm just looking for ways to, defeat him in the end or defeat his movement and replace it with something better. That's my goal.
Yeah, I'm also as disappointed as you are with the Democratic Party. There used to be a party that, we could identify that they were positive toward the working class, they were pro-union, but now they've changed. Now the money has, taken over, and the only way you win elections is to get billions of dollars. I mean, Elon Musk spent like $290 billion himself to get Trump elected. And here you and I get little things that say, give $25 to this person or $50 to that person. But, when you're going against somebody like Elon Musk and $290 billion, that's a little distorted.
Well, you wonder too, for him, it was, it's a drop in the bucket. B, is it just an investment? I mean, when you look at the information, it appears he may well have access to that could be worth, billions and hundreds of billions, an ungodly amount, not that he doesn't already have it. So you and I have been sort of talking big picture, but getting back to that New York Times article about state capture, the author provides a couple of suggestions, and I'd like your take on them. I thought they were interesting, intriguing.
Yeah.
One is the Democrats or the opposition needs to conduct. You can see it. I put it on the screen, Earl, and I don't know if you can read that. So I think this is the relevant portion of the article. Conduct a high-profile investigation run by independent elements of the government. He points out, the author, that Trump culled as many as 17 inspectors general, which, by the way, I've talked about in this program. It's very problematic. Again, something to be worried about. Illegal. He fired them without giving the 30-day notice that is required by law for discharging inspectors general. So that's a big issue. I like to see Congress investigate that very, very much. It's critical breach of law. And the other point is that there are congressional agencies, right, that Trump can't really touch that could do the investigations. I think this is a good idea, to be honest with you. I would task one of them to do some kind of an audit into what Trump is doing. But that said, it is critically important that not just the appearance, but the reality of true independence, of nonpartisanship, be maintained throughout the investigation.
I don't think Trump and Elon Musk and the Republicans are ready for that. They don't respect, independent agencies. They're very, they're very pro Donald Trump and very pro Elon Musk. So you're not gonna find these independent agencies that are gonna investigate what's going on unless a few Republicans will come on board.
Well, you need two, right? You need two to vote for the investigation.
Well, actually,
but they could be done by the one of these congressional offices. But you're right. I mean, otherwise it's a problem. Elections have consequences, but you're going to need a vote to have that kind of investigation. But again, this is why Democrats need to figure out a way to rally support and come up with. Now, again, I'm not supportive of the Democrat Party. I don't believe they're a viable, credible alternative to the Republicans. They're viable, yes, but I don't believe they're a credible alternative in terms of working for the American public. But I do agree with this. I think there needs to be some kind of independent examination into the actions to determine, the legality of them. And that said, we know that firing the inspectors general the way he did it was a Friday night massacre was simply illegal.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of, all these independent agencies investigating, but I just don't see any chance right now that Trump and his crew would even listen to those people. They
might not listen, but again, if they uncover, of course he's not going to listen, but if they uncover wrongdoing, again, you go back to Congress, and, there's one truly independent Republican, Tom Massey from Kentucky. They can find another, And there are some who don't like Trump. Susan Collins has shown some real independent. Oh, she's a senator, but there have been some other Congress members, Republicans, who might well step outside of the box.
Hardly any. I mean, the Republicans are almost, lockstep for Trump and MAGA because and they're all afraid of Trump. They're all afraid he might primary them, So, I think the Republican Party is a total mess. But I think one good thing that could happen is the American people start calling their representatives and senators and all that, and put a lot of pressure on them that way. I mean, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska was told that she is having, thousands more, phone calls against what Trump is doing than she ever had before. So, if these people could pay attention and the American people could get angry enough, maybe that's the only way things could happen.
Yeah, I think you're not quite as certain as you are that there aren't two Republicans in the House to be found who would be willing to back some kind of limited investigation to some of Trump's actions. That maybe you're right. Maybe they're just completely unwilling to buck with their party leadership. But even Jamie Raskin said, there are some Republicans he talks to, and he was surprised when Liz Cheney came on board back in, a few years ago when she was willing to take on Trump. Now, I wouldn't have really wanted her on my team, but all right. I mean, for a limited vote, yeah, that makes sense.
I think there's probably a few decent, moderate, House Republicans, but they're all, everybody seems to be afraid of Trump right now. They know he's going to go after anybody that disagrees with him. And so far, I've seen nothing from the Republican House, to indicate, anything other than complete loyalty to Donald Trump.
Well, then again, the way you fight that is you build a party that's more popular and that people support. And that is something that the Democrats have simply been incapable of, unwilling to really work to do. And again, their popularity is in the toilet right now.
I agree.
Another suggestion from the Times and that writer for Lawfare. By the way, Lawfare is an arm of the Brookings Institute. So people should know, full disclosure, obviously, that's a center to moderate center organization. It's certainly part of, the deep state, if you want to call it that, corporate elites. I mean, they're not in any way independent. So, you could look at Brookings, in terms of their funding and be critical. But that said, I think they make it's a good article. That's all. I mean, whatever else, I think they do a good job here. So I don't really care. Let me see if I can get that deck up there because I've been just showing me. But here you go. So here's a second option for the Democrats. And I agree with this. Second, opposition leaders must raise alarms. That's what we're doing here, Arlen. Making the case that this is not run-of-the-mill pay-to-play corruption will draw the scrutiny needed to raise the alarms. So I think that's true. Any thoughts before I give my caveat, though?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what they're saying here. Are they saying the Republicans must raise alarms?
No, opposition leaders would be the Democrats.
Yeah, but there are Democrats that are raising alarms, but nobody's going to listen because they don't have control of either house.
Well, this is from the article that I think you gave me, but either way, I think the point he's making is that the Democrats aren't really at this point enunciating, maybe they are, that this is not run-of-the-mill pay-to-play corruption, that it goes beyond that, and that information to prove that might be something you would, again, need one of those investigations. But this is what the author points out. I think it's true. I think you make the argument, hey, Democrats have done appointed some really bad people, but at least they were appointments. At least Congress got to, or the Senate got to advise and make a decision whether to confirm. Musk has zero oversight with respect to Musk, zero accountability.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's clearly acting, as not a government. He's not subject to government ethics requirements. It's a different kettle of fish with him. And I think that should be the message.
I think day by day, the Democratic party is sort of getting better. I think the people that they hear from, their constituents, are getting upset. And I think more and more you'll see Democrats raising more and more alarms. Not enough yet, but I hope they'll continue to do that.
Do you think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you
And
think?
then I hope the Republicans also come around, a few of them at least. So, that's necessary too.
Do you think the Democrats need to come clean, at least to some degree, on their own bad acts? Like I just showed that they themselves have had really bad appointments, and their policies have done great harm to the American public. If they want to rally support,
well, they just have to come up with ideas that are different, plans that are different, and not rely on what they've done before, because obviously it's gotten worse for them, and the election results show that.
but why would people believe them if they're just simply going to condemn Trump and his appointments?
No,
Why do people believe Democrats would do a better job?
They've got to come up with some strong ideas, things like universal health care, and these kind of a minimum wage, much higher minimum wage, and all that. If they come up with those things and push hard for them, I mean, those are the kind of issues that they didn't push hard enough for previously. So there's a lot that they could do that would be a lot different than what they're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge failing of the Harris campaign. I know a lot of folks felt she was a slam dunk pick. I certainly did not, but regardless, she never talked about universal health care.
No.
She didn't talk about peace, and she really didn't talk about good jobs nearly as much as she just talked about an opportunity economy and how much she loves small businesses. But when it came to actually creating an environment that would lead to higher wages and higher employment, I didn't hear it. Now maybe she did. It wasn't front and center if it was there at all. The party has to change that, Arlen.
No, I agree. Kamala Harris just played it everything close to the vest. I think she probably felt, well, if I just kind of go, be moderate and more positive and all that, that'll be enough to beat Trump. But obviously it wasn't, and she made a very bad mistake, I think, in not proposing some things that were much different than Biden.
Watching Halitics. I'm Hal. We've got Arlen with us. Please do join as a subscriber to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook. Got some new people on Facebook, Arlen, then quickly lost them. I think they saw some of the posts, probably mine, and decided they didn't want any part of it. This, in terms of the vision thing, one vision that the Democratic Party could present is for want of a better term, the DEI vision, right? This diverse, equitable, inclusive America. That is a vision. That vision hasn't won people over. And in fact, you can see that Trump's attacks on the DEI, at least according to Noam Scheiber, whoever that is in the New York Times, have found some approval on the left. Any thoughts on that? You and I have discussed these programs quite a bit. And by the way, just to go back for a moment, I jumped forward. Was there something you had planned or you want to say with respect to state capture that we didn't get to?
No, I don't know. Whatever I thought before, I want to get to this right here, because I think this was the biggest issue. The fact that people were, looking at the Trump administration seemingly having open borders and, making it too easy for undocumented aliens to get into the country. And I think people responded to that. I think the Democrats felt, oh, well, the biggest thing is we make sure there are enough of this race or this gender or whatever. And I think that backfired on them, and they went too far in that direction. They've got to. I think somebody made a good point that what's more important is that the Democrats go after the corporations and the rich people, and be more pro-union, and in other words, be on the side of labor and workers rather than making too much giving too much attention to these DEI issues.
Well, there's certainly an overlap, right? Because the DEI policies are sometimes actually promoted by companies themselves who are, say we're going to hire more minorities, we're going to focus on promoting people of color, people who are, trans, right? I mean, there's no question we've seen that. I've seen that in organizations I've been part of. And what a lot of people on the left are saying, that explicit appeal to identity rather than class, innate characteristics, your race, your nation of origin, your sexuality, that doesn't work. It doesn't bring people together. In fact, even in cases where it may be well intended, progressives like myself, although I wasn't asked to weigh in this article, do view the emphasis as harmful because, and I think this is so true, but I highlighted it, it pushes workers to focus on differences.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And the Democrats have made a big mistake in pushing all this DEI stuff the last few years, and the American people rebelled against it. And by the way, Hal, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of these corporations are now changing their minds about what they did about DEI, and they're, more trying to get in Trump's favor by doing, a lot of different things. And so the corporations are bending toward Trump, I think.
But we've seen the Democrats, and just so you see this too, Arlen, I'm sure you read this. I think I shared this with you. You thought it was an interesting article too, that being part of a union actually reduces racial tension, that workers who are part of an organization and I'll give a good analogy, a football team. You see those guys on the field, who knows what they think behind closed doors, but they sure seem to all work together, black, white. I don't see too many Latinos in football, but you look at other team sports, they seem about the least racist places that could be because they're all working together towards a common goal.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Hal. And certainly union membership is that way too. Sports teams, anytime you get, a lot of people together and there's all a mix of races that where it doesn't become, the important thing, which how many people are from this race or that gender or whatever. But when people are working toward the same goal, like unions are, then that's when, things work out a whole lot better for the working class.
Why then, given this, what seems pretty obvious now to us, have the Democrats not learned this? Why did they spend so much time and energy focusing on the message that what we need to do is be more inclusive when it comes to gender, when it comes to, it's not, and I don't want it to only be about race because it isn't. There are a lot of other ways that the diversity, equity, inclusion, and I've heard access thrown in there as well, has been promoted. It's not just about race. It's again about sexuality. It's about gender. It's about disabilities. And we should make sure people are fairly treated and that you don't get denied a position. But when you have quotas and you have affirmative action that results in folks from one particular group being favored when it comes to a position versus someone else, an open position, that does cause resentment. It causes people to fight against each other. When it's a zero-sum game, there's one promotion and you're saying to the whites and the blacks, well, we're going to take a black person this time and next time we're going to take an Asian. It's going to make people pissed off. They feel like they're not being treated fairly. You saw that on the football field. To give another example, so this kid yesterday scored a touchdown, Cooper DeJean. He's like the one white starting defensive back or cornerback. He scores a touchdown, has a great game. He's the only white guy who plays that position. He got that position because he earned it. No one said, oh, well, we need to put a white person in that position because we have all black cornerbacks. And his teammates embrace him and they love him. Because why? Because he helps them win first and foremost, more than anything else. Apparently, he's a nice guy. He's a good teammate. That too. But they don't think of him as the white cornerback. Maybe a little bit, but they just are like he's the guy who won the position. But if you had said to them beforehand, "We're going to take a white guy," they'd be pissed off. They'd be like, "Well, that's not fair." Even if they were all African Americans playing that position, they'd be like, "Well, we don't want to set aside." So I don't know, why do the Democrats not get this message?
My guess is they probably think, well, if we emphasize a particular race or particular gender, LGBT or whatever, that we're going to get those votes. But it turns out that a lot of the minorities actually, move toward Trump. So obviously this DEI stuff is not working. And sorry about the dog.
Did I lose you, Arlen? I don't know.
The dog was barking. I don't know if you hear it or not. But anyway,
I didn't hear it. No, I didn't hear.
But when you think of these plane crashes, we've had 3 major plane crashes in the last 3 weeks. The last one before that was like 1990 or something like that, so. And then Trump, the first thing he blames is DEI. He's thinking, these people are, not competent enough. And when he's the one that actually is more responsible for what happened, but he's blaming everybody else. And then I think, he's not making the case, or he's not even mentioning that these people still have to do the training and still have to take the tests. So it's not like they're, not able to do the work. So, it's just another way of Trump to blame minorities, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly does that, but I don't know how it's Trump's fault that there was a crash. I mean, I think if you want to point fingers, it would be better pointed at Congress, because they keep adding more flights, at least the one in DC. They kept adding more and more flights to an already overcrowded small airport because it suited their interest to be able to fly international. I'm perfectly willing to hear what Trump did that you think increased the likelihood of the crash. I'm just not aware of it.
Okay, I'll tell you one thing. He got rid of the FAA chairman and didn't appoint somebody in his place until after the crash. So, there was no leadership there in the FAA. And, so that may have contributed to the fact there weren't enough air traffic controllers doing their job and doing it properly.
Well, that's really interesting, Arlen. And if there's, evidence of that, my understanding is that National often had, a short staff, had an insufficient number of air traffic controllers, and this was just part of the normal procedure there. But if this was something that Trump's dilatoriness caused it, that's very interesting, and I'd love to see the evidence for that.
I think it's important because he doesn't think very much of anybody else running things when he could run things, and I think by not having somebody in charge of the FAA, that makes a difference.
Well, I would agree. Of course, long term, but he'd only just taken office, and I think there was an acting FAA. There was an acting. What is it? What does the FAA stand for? The
Federal Aviation.
Federal Aviation Authority. So
yeah,
I wasn't aware of this being considered an issue.
I heard it mentioned several times, and I think it's an important issue. If you don't have anybody that's in charge of the agency, they're not going to, have any responsibilities, and things kind of fall apart.
Well, we'll again look into that, and I'll report back whatever I find, because that's very intriguing. I think the where I was going with my question, why the Democrats embrace a strategy that is not particularly effective and doesn't win them elections, I would argue it's because it's a strategy that's billionaire approved. I would argue that it's a preferred response to inequality and injustice in America by the billionaires to say, well, there are going to be a limited number of people who get to climb the ladder. And the problem right now is that it's only white people who get to climb that ladder, or it's more whites than other people. So we're going to make sure that there'll be a couple of more black people and a couple more Latinos and some gays and some trans people who also get to climb that ladder and get to be at the top with us, rather than saying, you know what, no one should be way up at the top and lording it over everybody else. And the real problem is there's billionaires at all, and there's homeless people. That's the real issue.
I think the real issue is the income inequality, wealth inequality is growing all the time. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And if the American people pay attention to that and notice it, maybe something will happen.
Well, Nate Silver addresses this in his latest piece, which I also shared with you. Right. And here he says, the Dems need a billionaire strategy. You can be pro-capitalism or anti-oligarch, but the middle ground won't persuade voters. Unlike you and me, I think he's far more agnostic on whether it's okay to be pro-billionaire to pursue policies that the billionaires like. He seems to think that might be all right, but he says the new Democratic Party chair is the worst possible choice, Ken Martin, because he seems to speak out of both sides of his mouth. He says, there are good billionaires, the ones who support us, and then there's the bad billionaires. And what Silver says, that ain't going to fly. Either take the position we want we want trickle down economics, we want the job creators to be unfettered, or you take the position no, they have too much and they're hoarding their wealth, and we need to claw it back from them. So, what's your response to Silver?
Well, I think you can't ignore the fact that the inequality is, it's nice to be pro-billionaire maybe, but when it affects people down at the bottom rung of the ladder, when more and more people don't have enough to eat, don't have enough homes, when more and more people are going into poverty, then you have a real problem. And I think that the wealth in this country needs to be distributed a lot better, and you're not going to have that from the Republican Party or Elon Musk or any of those super billionaires.
Agreed. So does the Democrat Party then need, or an alternative? I keep talking about the Democrat Party. What if the Democrat Party, but I'll say it to you this way, because I saw my old boss, and by the way, just so folks know, tomorrow I'm really psyched to have a great guest, just like Arlen's a great guest. Tomorrow's guest will also be great. Mike Olis, he's my former supervisor at Our Revolution. I've talked about my stint there, 3+ years, I think, as a national, regional, and national coordinator for Our Revolution. So we'll be talking to Mike tomorrow. And I think Mike, actually, if you put us on a spectrum, Arlen, you'd be more towards the Democratic position. I'd be far to the left, and Mike would kind of fall in between us. So it'll be kind of an interesting chat with Mike Olis. But, I guess my question would be this. Does the Democratic Party, and I would say, what if it doesn't? So does the Democrat Party need to take a much more explicit anti-billionaire position? In other words, in the position that wealth is, as you said, wealth and income inequality is far too great, and we need to reduce it. And the way you reduce that is you raise taxes on the rich, and you have much tighter safety net and other job-creating policies and such for everyone else. Is that a message the Democrats need?
Well, I think you have to realize the position the Democrats are in. If they, kind of badmouth the billionaires who support them, then they're going to lose a lot of money. And right now, they can't afford to lose billionaires because Republicans will have so much more money and so much more power and influence. So the Democrats are in a tough spot, I think. And that's probably, one reason that they're, having problems, because, well, what are you going to do? You can't, with the laws the way they are and the rules the way they are, the corporations have all the advantages and all the rules and all, and, you just can't, piss off your billionaires. You got to keep some of them who are, relatively decent.
Then it sounds like there's no hope. I'm sorry to say it that way, but if the Democrats can't take on those who are causing our problems, then I don't know how we can solve our problems. Or do you think, what am I missing when I ask you that way?
Well, I don't know if the American people really understand how much of an advantage the rich really have. I mean, there was, a time just a couple decades ago when we were trying to come up with laws and rules to rein in some of the power of, rich people, donating to candidates. And, the McCain-Feingold and some of those rules would have helped a lot, but those are gone. They're out the window. Nobody's talking about things like that. And right now it's open. It's all about money.
I think McCain-Feingold passed, right? But the Supreme Court largely gutted it, I believe, with its rules on PAC money and money equals speech. And as long as you have these super PACs, they can spend an unlimited amount of money. Individually, could still be limitations on the amount of money that an individual can give directly to a candidate. That apparently the court says is okay, but a super PAC cannot be limited in its ability to raise funds and spend it. And indeed, we don't even get to know where the money comes from in many of those super PACs. So maybe we can blame the Supreme Court for that. So I go back to my question again. I think it's fair for you to say, I'm not arguing with your point, which is because I worry about it too, that the only way a party can win in this environment is by being corrupt, right? Is by giving influence, favors, dispensations to the richest contributors to it. I accept that may be true. I hope it's not. I recoil against it. I want it not to be true, and I think the party should act like it isn't true. But if it is true, as you describe it, then doesn't that mean we simply no longer live in a democracy, period, and we can't get it back?
Well, you're right about that. In that, democracy's gone. We don't have a real democracy when you have the kind of voting system that we have. And the important question is, can we get it back? And you got to have the American people behind you on that. You got to, that's where the Democrats have to really, use the ground games to try to influence their voters and people over the country that this is the problem. Our democracy is lost and we have to do something about it. And, if the American people get that point of view, then you might see some changes.
But how can they make that argument in a credible, believable way when there's a billionaire, when they're sitting on the lap of a billionaire who's got his hand up their back or is pulling strings from above the stage?
You're right. No, I agree with you on that. And I had never said it's going to be easy, but I mean, that's the only solution. You can't keep going with the system we have now where, the billionaires and the corporations have all the power in this country and can vote in whoever. They pretty much can buy candidates, and that's what they do. They buy elections.
All right, Arlen, with us, the thought leader, 240-242-5646. Haven't gotten any calls. I haven't really asked for them. We're having a great chat here. I should have checked to see if Ari's commenting online. He is there. Thanks, Ari. I have a little, let me do this, Arlen. I could get to this New York Times editorial that you provided, but instead I want to give you, again, Jamie Raskin, and I'm going to go back to this real quick. This is the little purple thing I put up on Facebook with my opinion of what needs to happen to defeat MAGA. And right now, I think the bigger risk isn't even MAGA because Musk isn't really MAGA. The bigger risk is Musk, in my opinion, far greater. MAGA, which is Steve Bannon, does have some legitimate populist leaning, some working class cred. I don't like the xenophobia and the immigrant bashing and all that. I hate it, as a matter of fact. But I think those are folks we can work with. If we provide them with health care, if we say we're going to fight for you to have health care, we're going to fight for you to have better wages, we're going to fight for you to have good job protections, we would peel some of them off. Some of them almost certainly did vote for Obama and Biden were disillusioned. But Musk is just a soulless billionaire whose only real concern, I would believe, besides his strange, tics and obsessions, would be himself. So it's not even MAGA so much. But my argument, whatever Musk can only be defeated by a party that fights for America where all have enough and none have too much. I want to give you this video with Jamie Raskin. There you can see him. See if I can get a little bit better view for our viewers here. This is definitely better. Look at that, Arlen, huh? You can see all Raskin there.
Yep.
Here's a question I submitted. I was delighted. I was thrilled. I couldn't have been happier that they asked it. I want to see whether you like his response, what you think of it.
Okay. What is the Democratic plan for Gaza?
Oh no, that is the wrong. See, now that is just so, I am frustrated like you wouldn't believe. Here we go. Let's try it again. MAGA can only be defeated. Trump, Musk can only be defeated with a vision. Here's the question for Raskin.
Okay. What is the Democratic plan for Gaza?
Oh, the same.
Oh no. Oh no.
Isn't that terrible, Arlen? What am I doing wrong
just
here?
say the
I had the
question and
same
what's that?
exact. It's like some kind of a horrible Groundhog Day where the same problem keeps cropping up. I think I'm going to see if I can get that. There may still, it may possibly.
Now, can you
We
just
may not
say
be able to get it.
question?
Arlen, let me just ask you this. Putting that aside, I'll play it for tomorrow. What's the alternative? What is the media doing its job? Is the New York Times, because I think the New York Times is way too pro-democratic. I think it doesn't hew to a nonpartisan standard. And I wonder what you think of that. I've said it before, though.
Well, I'm not happy with the media overall. I don't think they're doing a job that's very helpful for the American people. And you right now, what you have that you didn't have several decades ago is all these right-wing networks and the Fox Newses and their copycats and the talk radio and all that. And the there's a lot of influence so that a lot of Republicans aren't getting any other point of view than the right-wing view. And of course, stations like Fox News and their like, they ignore things and they change the subject and they lie. And, we're not going to get anywhere if people, are looking at those things and not more mainstream sources.
Well, we're trying to provide that alternative. We're trying to provide an honest, down the middle alternative to corporate media. But again, our reach is weak, is low, and we're just trying to build on it. It's a rough time. It's a rough time because I don't see an opposition coalescing. I think that's the biggest issue, right? Is we don't have a united opposition. Some would say, well, Hal, you're the problem. You should unite with Democrats. That's what Raskin said. Raskin actually said he's not going to criticize Democrats. But I think that's a huge part of the issue. I think this idea that your party is a monolith and you need to stand by members of that party, you are very critical of that. You want Republicans to take on Trump. So I want Democrats to take on their corporate leaders.
Well, we have to put all this in perspective, Hal. Trump won. He's only been in office for 3 weeks. The Democrats can't change their entire party in 3 weeks and change everything. But I think they have to definitely, come up and stop some of the extreme things that Trump and Musk are doing before they can, start talking about what they want to have.
You can do both. You have to do both because you're not going to you can't beat something with nothing. But Trump has something, and right now the Democrats don't seem to have anything at all. And that's what I thought the answer that Raskin gave. That's what where I was getting at with the Raskin answer is that he doesn't provide any meat. There's no substance. It's just how bad the Republicans are, and I think that's where they fail. They fall completely apart. I won't play the answer about Gaza because I can do that another time. Arlen, anything else before I let you go?
I think the problem is there's a lot of bad things going on right now, and I really think it feels like a coup, and I think Trump and Musk want to take over the country to ignore the rules, and maybe if they ignore the Supreme Court and other courts, then we really have a constitutional crisis.
Well, I asked you a similar question last week, so I'll ask it slightly differently this time. What is your fear? What is your greatest fear with respect to this Musk-Trump takeover? Like, what do you see happening that's particularly bad, or that either has happened or is happening or will happen as a result of this fascistic takeover?
Well, I think everything, Hal. I think what they want to do and what they want the country to be is totally different than certainly I do. And I think the majority of American people, if you look at polls of their views on issues and all that, I think they're a lot different than Musk and Trump. So I think if Trump and Musk get their way, we're going to have, everything will be geared toward, like I say, corporations, business, and there'll be unions will be shoved aside, and we'll get all these social issues, like they have in Florida, where they'll ban books and things like that. There are just so many things that I don't like about what Trump and his people are doing that they have to be stopped.
All right. Well, that's going to do it, Arlen. I promise, folks, I'm going to play that Raskin clip for Mike tomorrow. So if you wanted to hear what Jamie Raskin has to say about a democratic vision for working Americans, if you want to hear that, you should tune into Halitics tomorrow at noon. Like the way I did that, Arlen, I took like a weakness, which was my complete botching of the clip, into a strength by billboarding it, promoting it for tomorrow's program.
Well, I'll listen tomorrow, Hal.
I appreciate that, Arlen. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Arlen, next week will be 2 Eastern, 11 East Coast, just so folks know. And then we're going to move you. We're going to actually move you. We're going to pick you up physically and move you to Tuesday. And we'll keep the time. It'll be 2 p.m. East Coast, 11 a.m. Pacific. And of course, that may change when Arlen does his annual cross-country west to east trip. All right, man. Thanks so much. Always a pleasure to have you on, Arlen. Always an honor.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
I always enjoy you as well. That's going to do it, folks. See you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.